Hey, and welcome back to Game Talk. I'm your host, Sam, and me on today I'm joined by Connor.
Hey, guys.
And Mike.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about Fallout, more specifically, the Amazon Fallout TV show that has been making huge waves recently. And to the extent to where even I think Bethesda and Microsoft are a bit surprised. I don't know if we want to discuss this sort of game-centric angle on this first, but I don't know if you guys saw this, but Bethesda was doing interviews talking about how they're looking at ways to increase output. Microsoft's wanting a Fallout-related project from Bethesda sooner rather than later. So yeah.
If I'm Bethesda, I'm surprised by every win I get right now.
Yeah.
They've had some
and
stinkers for like 10 years.
And I'm sure they knew, because like Todd Howard and Bethesda were involved with the creation of the show. They must have known they had something good on their hands, but I don't think they even were close to anticipating the degree to which this would blow up. Right now, this is the, I think, second highest watched show in Amazon Prime history.
And that's really surprising. Because, like Lord of the Rings, The Boys, Invincible,
yeah, those are really good shows, and Fallout's up there.
I would say, I would put Fallout like just below The Boys, probably. Like, it's not quite that good, but it was. I
agree. Yeah,
I actually Like, I think you liked it less than I did. I think I actually thought this was a pretty good show. And I'm a Fallout hater. I don't like the games at all.
I think what we'll do, right, so we'll talk about the show in a spoiler-free context. We'll talk about how it relates to the games. We'll talk about the games for a bit, how Bethesda's kind of operating based off the success of the show. And then very clearly we'll announce when we're going to talk about spoilers. There will be a timestamp in the description if you want to skip spoilers, so no worries there. But yeah, Connor, so just, I guess, in general, my impressions of the show, at first I was really not feeling it. So, like, for the first 2 or 3 episodes, I was just like, okay, I'm going to watch this because I know it's, like, the big hot thing right now, and I kind of want to...
Because we have to do an episode on it.
Well, kind of, right? But, like, we don't have to do an episode on anything, but I was like, this is, like, a big deal right now, and I'm always happy to see a video game adaptation do well, right? Like, because The Last of Us kind of set this benchmark. And since that, and I guess around that, we've been seeing successful video game adaptations. So Hollywood seemingly cracked some sort of code, and I think the code is simply just respecting the source material. Which
the code is
really
to let people from the game be involved.
Yeah, it's
Neil
such
Druckmann,
a wild.
Todd Howard.
It's such a wild juxtaposition between the Halo TV show, where like the entire team behind it said we didn't play the games, we don't really care about the games, we care about the characters.
And it's quite a shame because I think the Halo TV show was right on the cusp of like the turning point of people figuring out how to make these game adaptations. I think if the Halo show was made in 2024, it would be a different story.
Yeah, like the key to a video game adaptation is to get the feel of the video game right. And the Halo TV show, instead of doing any of that, decided to make Master Chief a Batman-esque figure where there's 2 characters, one in the armor and one not, where he never was in the game.
That's stupid, yeah.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
No, Fallout's in an interesting spot, too, where, to my knowledge, this show is not adapting any characters.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, so it's just what's interesting though is this show is canon to the overall Fallout lore. So the games, timeline-wise it takes place furthest in the future. So the games happened before this show, which is an interesting sort of way to go about it. But yeah, there are no characters, the settings are the same, the overall plot over the hundreds of years is the same. But I guess just talking about my impressions, right? For the first couple episodes, I was like, okay, this is not really my cup of tea. Like, don't get me wrong, it was fine. But I think the first few episodes in particular really speak to you if you're a Fallout fan, like a serious Fallout fan.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said that the show takes place the furthest in the future, right?
Yes.
I thought this was before Fallout 76, because in 76, the Vault Dwellers leave the Vault.
In 76, Fallout 76 is the earliest.
The earliest?
Yes, Fallout 76 is...
So why haven't they left the vaults yet?
Certain vaults never let people out.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
They were never going to
yeah,
leave.
some
Okay.
vaults they never leave. Other vaults they leave early. Vault 76, I believe, was the earliest vault to open. Hold on, let
See,
me
they
double
talk
check.
early in the show. They say like, "Oh, this next generation might be the ones that get to
Right.
leave the vault," which I guess they could have been lying or something about the radiation levels or something. But
Yeah, Vault
I got the
76,
impression that this was just before 76. That was
Yeah, Vault 76 opens 25 years after the bombs drop.
Oh, so is that in like 20? Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, the Fallout 76 is so far before any Fallout game.
Okay, I didn't play it. I didn't know that. Okay.
So it's an
Nice
interesting amalgamation of people we have here because Connor and I are probably the least familiar with actual Fallout lore, but have watched the entire show. And Mike is probably the most familiar, and he has watched one episode.
I have
But
watched
I
one
wonder
episode.
I wonder if that is telling because like my dad likes the Halo show. Like I wonder how but I think the Fallout show is going to be popular with Fallout fans because like my buddy Tyler likes it and he's probably the biggest Fallout fan I know.
No, like I can clearly see it's lovingly created for those fans. And even I, as like a very casual Fallout fan, like I played and enjoyed 3 when it came out on 360. I played 4, liked what I played of it, but kind of dropped it after a while. But yeah, even me as a surface level Fallout fan did catch some references and some music cues that I did appreciate. But more so than the fans, I mean, the reason why this is blowing up is because it's speaking to non-fans, right? It's breaking through to a new audience in a similar way The Last of Us did, where people who have no idea about video games, no idea about Fallout, are now talking about this show, which is kind of surreal to see.
I'm curious what they think of it because this is like, to my eye,
it's very video gamey.
It's a very like Lucy, our protagonist. I feel like in any other show, people would complain about her being like a bit of a Mary Sue or something. But in this context, it's like, no, she's the player character. Like, obviously, she can do all these things.
But here's the thing. The thing the Fallout TV show really nails is the tone, I think.
Yes.
Because the tone of Fallout is very unique in the games. It's this whimsical, like, 50s coded, lighthearted, but ultra-violent, like juxtaposed against each other, and the show really nails that too. It nails the humor, the dark humor, the violence, all of it.
I think it's tonally. I think it's kind of really interesting. We have these sort of 3 main characters. There's the ghoul. I don't remember his name, and he's kind of an antagonist figure. We have Lucy, who's the Vault Dweller, and we have Maximus, who is a member of the Brotherhood of Steel. And I think, like, Lucy and Maximus are really interesting to compare against each other because, like, Lucy never has to face consequences for, like, anything throughout this show. Like,
yeah, Lucy had a very sheltered existence prior to, I guess, the events of the show.
And even into the Wasteland, she kind of continues to. Like, bad stuff happens, but I would argue that, like, she faces very few consequences for her decisions. Like, stuff goes well for Lucy, and stuff does not go well for Maximus.
Right.
He is
and I think what they're doing
being punished for everything.
With Lucy, I think what they're trying to do with this character is it's the character who is the shining beacon of optimism, even in the face of, like, total horror, total violence.
Right.
Like, where there's no hope, Lucy will have hope. Which is a very kind of, you know, I don't know, it's a little cheesy, it's a little saccharine, but
it's video gaming too, because she is not from this world. She is someone exploring this world that she's not from.
But to their credit, I think the actress really pulls it off, and and it again, it does fit with the tone of the show.
Yeah.
Because if it was, like, completely grounded, like something like The Last of Us, it would just be so jarring as to be, like, unwatchable.
It wouldn't work at all, no.
Yeah. But
I really liked it. For the most part. Granted, I was sick when I watched it, so I wasn't, you know, it wasn't competing with anything else. I was too sick to play video games. I was too sick to, like, go out and do anything, so I was pretty happy to have.
I don't know. I'll discuss this more in the spoilers section, but there was a specific moment in episode 4 where I sat up and I was just like, okay, I'm into this show now.
Okay.
But no, I mean, like, that's not to say I wasn't into it. It's just that, like, I wasn't really compelled to be like, okay, I have to watch the next episode. But
yeah, I would say by the end of episode 2, I was, like, resigned to, like, yeah, I'm going to finish this series. But there was never a moment in this series that I was like, I have to see what happens next.
Right. Well, I don't know if I agree. Like later on in the series, the stuff that was happening in the vaults was very compelling to me, and I'm a bit of a weird Fallout fan because I think, to me, the stuff in the vaults is the most interesting stuff. Like, the stuff in the Wasteland is whatever to me. The Brotherhood of Steel, whatever to me. Like, I just want to see these vaults.
See, I was kind of in a weird spot. I think I knew enough Fallout lore that there were zero surprises in this to me. Because my buddy Tyler just likes talking about Fallout lore.
Right.
So there was not a single second of this show was a surprise to me. But I did think that the depictions and everything were, like, good enough and, like, interesting enough to watch that I still had a really good time with it.
So, and the way I feel about it is I don't think, as I watch more of it, I don't think I'm really going to care about the Vault Dweller story at all.
I think you might be a little surprised.
Yeah,
by
now, the ghoul,
there's some intrigue there.
Fascinated. I am
The ghoul is-
fascinated by this ghoul. I already know who the ghoul is because that's
it's
shown
kind of
in
obvious.
episode 1.
It's not really a mystery, yeah.
I'm fascinated.
But he steals the show. I love every
he's
scene
fantastic.
he's in. Like,
He is absolutely fantastic. And I will say, as someone who watched Westworld, or at least the first couple seasons of Westworld, this show is made by Jonathan Nolan, the creator of Westworld. The ghoul is absolutely his new take on the Man in Black, Ed Harris's character in Westworld. They're like the same guy. I don't know if you've seen Westworld, Connor, but it's just interesting seeing that character archetype realized again in a different world. Like the gunslinging cowboy with like a really dark tendency.
Yeah, and he's practically a force of nature. Like, there is not a single moment where you think it's even possible that this guy's not going to get what he's looking for. He is unstoppable.
And I love that when he's on screen, they never compromise how scary he is.
Yeah.
Like, he's very likable as a character. He's very well acted.
Yes.
He's just mesmerizing to watch. But there's not even like a second where you can think that, okay, maybe the worst case scenario won't happen here. You know,
Right.
like every time he's on screen, people die, people get mutilated. It's a disaster for everyone around him.
Yeah. It's very good. Every scene he was in is just way.
Yeah, he's
I don't know,
definitely the standout, I think.
Yeah.
And we have
yeah.
flashbacks to who he was before he was the ghoul, and I really enjoy those too.
Yeah, those were fantastic as well. Like, Walton Goggins is just, he's a really good actor. And he really, like, the flashbacks in particular, I really enjoyed all of them because, yeah, we find out why the bombs dropped in this show, or presumably why they dropped in the show. But I don't know, watching the moments before disaster are always interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because there's always this tension of, like, what are the series of steps that led to the crisis?
I actually think, and this might be a hot take, but I kind of think that this does the before the disaster stuff better than The Last of Us did. I wasn't real interested in watching it in The Last of Us, except for specifically Joel's stuff, like as the disaster was happening.
I agree with you, but I think the point of The Last of Us is what comes after. And the point of Fallout largely is too, but The Last of Us is largely like, this is the world we live in, and we just have to tell our stories in this world. In the world of Fallout, they're still trying to, like, get back to normalcy to an extent. I guess it's a question of how, you know, like, the world of The Last of Us is resigned to bleakness, whereas Fallout still has
I'm
hope.
just pointing out, I don't think the show, because The Last of Us did have a couple of scenes that take place before the disaster, and I just kind of think they
like
were
the
wasted.
first episode.
Well, no, I think there was another later episode where they did a flashback to, like, there was like a doctor somewhere of mycology in India or something. And it was wasted screen time. I don't know.
Oh, really? I thought that scene was incredible. I thought that was one of the best scenes in the show.
I didn't think it added anything. It was terrifying. It wasn't bad. Like, I didn't feel it at the time, but I didn't like it as much as the flashback scenes in Fallout.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with that. The flashback scenes in Fallout were really compelling because you get invested in, I guess, Cooper's story too.
Right.
Because you see, and this isn't really a spoiler, right? But you see, like, how good-natured and heroic he is before the events of Fallout. And then the character he is now in present day, this absolute menace with no regard for human life.
I mean,
How
he
does
doesn't
one
even
go
want to...
from A to B there, you know?
He's an actor, and he doesn't want his character in the movie or the show, I forget, he doesn't want his character to kill someone.
Right.
And then he goes from an actor who won't even kill someone on screen to just vicious disregard for human life.
Yeah. And seeing that transformation, like what caused someone like that to turn into a monster is really fascinating.
Yeah. And it does more than maybe anything else to really show you, because they actually don't give you a ton of, they weirdly spend a lot of time setting up the setting in the vault, but then they make a lot out of a little as far as the setting of the wasteland. It's all given through characters, and you kind of have to be like, well, wow, to get these characters, this world must be awful.
Right. And I think they made the right choice in, I don't know. Like I said, I'm a weird one.
That's not a criticism.
I like the vault focus a lot. I think it was absolutely the right choice to continue to focus on the vaults. And yeah, the wasteland is interesting, but I don't know, like
it's a lot of nothing. Like
the human drama and the mysteries are in the vaults, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, the wasteland, you know, and I guess Mike, someone who's more familiar with Fallout lore, can probably speak more on this, but I'm sure there's a lot to see there too. From what I was reading online, there was a lot of things that I guess just weren't shown. Like a lot of game references were in the show, but a lot of stuff still hasn't been shown. And so people are looking forward to like season 2, trying to see more stuff adapted.
I mean, is Philly a location that we've ever seen before?
Philadelphia?
No, Philly is
Philly.
Yeah, it's a town. I think they go there in episode 2. I hope I'm not giving. It's not really a spoiler, but it's a town built on top of a landfill, I believe.
I don't know about that, but the New California Republic is absolutely
I know that's in. Yeah.
So LA you go to in, I believe, Fallout 2. Maybe not.
Okay.
Maybe I don't think you ever touch LA actually.
Okay, so this is stuff we've not seen then.
Yeah, LA is kind of a new place. Oh wait, no, you've seen parts of LA. Those parts of like the Boneyard and everything.
Okay.
But I think LA is so big that like Santa Monica has never been shown.
Yeah.
So anywhere around Santa Monica is new.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a big world out there, and obviously Fallout is focused on the United States, but I'm sure there's been some like lore, like travel logs or whatever in the games talking about the rest of the world, which is presumably as equally ruined.
Very little, I think. They've recently said, I think there's some stuff about China specifically, but they recently said Fallout is not, they're not going to make games or media that take place anywhere else in the world because the American naivete is so critical to the tone and setting. And they're 100% right. Like, nowhere else in the world. I mean, Fallout's a Western in a lot of ways. So
right, definitely the wasteland parts. But
yeah.
I don't know, there is this fascination that we've had in media just for the longest time, for decades, about specifically the destruction and aftermath of the United States. You know, like that's such a common thing. I think more so than other countries. And I'm not sure why. But I don't know. I'm interested by it as well. Like post-apocalyptic US is a very it's a breeding ground for very interesting storytelling, I think.
It's a breeding ground for a lot of storytelling, and some of it happens to be very interesting. I think there's a lot of really, really stupid bad post-apocalypse media too.
Yeah, like I don't know, The Walking Dead. Hope I don't
oh my god,
step on anyone's toes there, but
zombie apocalypses in general are that was the original reason I wasn't fond of The Last of Us, like back in like 2014 or whatever, was because like we were inundated with zombie media at the time. I was exhausted by it.
No, but some of the more like I don't even say like non-traditional apocalypse stuff like Fallout, because that was the result of nuclear bombs dropping, which is also a common trope. But I guess non-traditional apocalyptic media I find very interesting, like Horizon Zero Dawn, actually. Which also, I got a lot of shades of Horizon Zero Dawn from the plot of Fallout Season 1 as well, by the way.
Really?
Specifically the stuff in the vaults reminded me a lot. And the eventual reveals reminded me a lot of Horizon Zero Dawn, which was cool.
Yeah. What Fallout games have you played, Ahmed?
Well, I said earlier in the show, but I've completed 3. So like back in the day when 3 first came out, I played it and loved it.
Okay.
And I haven't played New Vegas. I need to play New Vegas. Everyone says it's the best one. And 4 I've played, I think, 10, 20 hours of before dropping it.
Okay. I have about 2 hours in New Vegas and cannot stand it. So, and everybody says it's the best one, so I just never bothered to try any others.
Well, it's different because it wasn't made by Bethesda. It was made by Obsidian.
In 18 months.
So.
Really? That's quick.
Yeah. Well, it was rushed out. It had to be. They had a deadline. But it is one of the best games. The fact that they put out a flawed masterpiece in 18 months means that if they had time to cook that thing, there'd be no competition.
Well, what I'm saying, Connor, is that if you don't like New Vegas, you might like 3 or 4 because New Vegas is different.
New Vegas is just a better 3, though, in mechanics. So if you didn't like New Vegas's mechanics, you're not going to like 3.
I just don't like RPGs with guns that much. Borderlands gets a bit of a pass for its cartooniness, I think, but I don't like bullet sponges, and that was all I was feeling in New Vegas when I played it.
Was there VATS in New Vegas?
Yeah.
I always thought VATS was a fun system.
It's a neat mechanic, yeah.
But yeah, speaking of VATS, right? Like seeing the Pit Boy in this show and like the little like the mascot guy. What's the mascot called? Is he just the Pit Boy?
He's the Vault Boy.
The Vault Boy.
Yeah.
Vault guy, Vault Boy.
Yeah. I mean, the whole show really nailed like the Fallout aesthetic, I think.
Yeah.
The only thing that I kind of have some criticism of like visually, I think some of the monsters were a little goofy looking, even for something like Fallout, which is
the big fish.
Intentionally the tone of Fallout is all over the place, and that's fine. But yeah, even with that being the case, I thought some of the monsters were like, okay, this is kind of jarring.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that had been in any of the games, so I don't know. I imagine it was not new. I doubt there was a lot of new material. Although I think the medicine, the ghoul medicine in this show, I think was new. Because I looked it up.
Right, because I don't think there's are like sentient ghouls a thing in the games?
Yeah, you can get one as a companion.
Oh, okay. I just don't remember. Yeah.
Yeah. No, because there's like a famous... I'm going to butcher this completely, so I'm going to piss Tyler off. But there's an ending to one of the games where you have to go into an extremely irradiated area to do something. And if you have your ghoul companion with you, like the obvious thing is to ask them to do it because they're immune. And they'll just refuse to do it because it kind of feels like the developers didn't think of that.
Okay, that's Fallout 3, and it is not the ghoul companion. I know Fox, the super mutant companion, will tell you no unless you have the DLC for Broken Steel, which he will do it.
Okay, thank you.
It was just because they wanted the game to end there.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Ghouls are immune to radiation, though, right?
Yes. They're healed by radiation, actually.
Interesting. And you can't ever play as one.
In Fallout Tactics, I think you can play as one. That's not a base Fallout game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I if we're done with our spoiler-free thoughts about the show, I kind of want to just talk about the show and its impact and how it ties into the games and what Bethesda is thinking now. Because we did have a next-gen quote-unquote patch release for Fallout 4 to, I guess we'll say, mixed results.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second before we get into spoilers. The only thing that patch promised to do on Steam was to make Fallout 4 Steam Deck verified.
And it didn't.
And it broke compatibility with the Steam Deck. It ruined the frame pacing, and it also, I guess it originally launched with a launcher, which was where you would change all the settings. There were no settings menus in game. And now that launcher's gone, so like you can't change the resolution of the game from what I was reading on Reddit. Like it's just so insanely broken. You have to go into an INI file now to change.
It's I don't know how Bethesda keeps doing this.
So what it did was it broke every mod that fixed the issues that they promised to fix and didn't fix any of the issues.
Yeah,
like
just insane.
It had ultra wide support and it broke the UI scaling for ultra wide support, where
Oh my
mods had
God.
already fixed that, but now those mods are broken. So now
Like-
the most popular mod on the workshop on the Nexus is a downgrader to get rid of the next gen update.
I just wasn't ready to declare this. Like, Bethesda's cooked. Like,
That's so bad.
they're just so insanely cooked. They
Dude, that's the craziest thing. They're cooked, but people love their stuff. Like, I don't understand.
do
Well,
they?
I don't know.
I mean, when's the last time they put out something anybody loved?
Dude,
Like,
but Fallout is
4,
seeing
but Fallout
numbers
4 was
that.
forever ago.
But what
And
I'm saying
Fallout
is,
4
like,
is
Fallout's
contentious.
currently seeing numbers that it's never even seen before. Like, Fallout 76 current peak is right now
That's not surprising because it's
because of the show.
yeah, but it's also the game's fixed, like a little bit at least.
Right, but I mean, like, it's because of the show, right? Like,
Yeah, it's because of
the
the show,
is
yeah.
is the impetus for.
No, I mean,
like,
Bethesda
all
has
this
a lot of
Fallout love.
like Elder Scrolls is also a really good IP. Fallout is a really good IP. Starfield, frankly, had the potential to be a really good IP. They're just not making good games.
Yeah, and I think, like, I have a lot of problems with Fallout 4, and most of them boil down to Bethesda needs to get a new engine.
I just think that's it's a meanerless take.
Yes.
Creation engine is the same as the Morrowind engine in the same way that Unreal 5 is the same as Unreal 1.
Like, Starfield showed that without VATS, Fallout 4 would have been one of the worst gunplay games, but VATS is such a good crutch for gunplay that,
Well, see,
like...
that's I don't know. I
it
think
made
Starfield's
me ignore
gunplay was decent. I thought it was
hated
better
it.
than
All
Fallout's.
the weapons sucked.
It was better than Fallout's for sure.
Every single weapon I pulled
just
out.
fine.
But I don't know, man. That's the thing. Like, Bethesda has become this sort of unique entity in my mind because it seems like everything they do is just a screw up.
Yeah.
And yet they become more and more popular. It's
Was
crazy.
Starfield more popular? I mean, Starfield is not more popular than Skyrim, is it?
I
Oh,
don't
no,
think
no,
so.
certainly not. But Starfield did. I mean, it has like over 10 million players, which is not small.
That's not small, no.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, Elder Scrolls and Fallout are their big IP for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like the release of the show prompted a next gen patch, which
Yeah, Fallout 4 is the fourth most played game on Steam right now, which...
yeah, the show is really doing something for Fallout. But what I was gonna say, right, like I know on PC the patch is really bad. I think on console it's decent. Like on PS5 you get 60 FPS now, which is basically all you could really want out of a
Yeah.
patch like this.
Does it run at 4K? I mean, that would be nice too, but
I think there was a resolution bump. I don't know about 4K, but yeah, it's 60 FPS.
it'd be crazy for it not to be at 4K on PS5. That game is ancient.
But yeah, a first-person game has to be at 60 FPS as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned nowadays. I played 1,000 hours of Destiny 1 at 30 FPS. Can you imagine
No.
what kind of heathen I used to be? But anyway, but I thought it was interesting too. I don't know if you guys saw like these interviews with Todd Howard. They are thinking of ways to increase their output, which kind of scares me too, right? Like if they're even with their infrequent output, they put out like extremely buggy products. If they speed up their output, create multiple teams, what have you, I wonder what that'll do to that situation. But they are thinking of ways to increase their output because they do know now that there is like fever pitch demand for new Fallout content. And obviously they have missed the boat, right? There's no way they can put something out to capitalize on the hype of the show. But maybe like by season 2 or 3, they can, I guess, synergize with it and get a lot of sales on a game. But Fallout 5 is, as far as we know, a decade plus away.
Yeah, it's going to be a
at
while.
least.
Right?
Yeah.
Elder Scrolls is next. Although I don't know if the success of this show is going to change any of that, which personally, like, give me Elder Scrolls. I would much rather have that than Fallout 5. That's just me, though. Yeah, I don't know. I guess Bethesda and Microsoft might look into something like remakes, like a remake of Fallout 1 or 2 or 3. And especially 1 or 2, right, Mike? Because those two are, like, very different from, I guess, modern Fallout.
I don't think those will ever see a remake, honestly. They're top-down CRPG styles that are more turn-based. And I don't think they'll ever see, like, a rehash because they're so radically different from Fallout 3 and the Bethesda Fallouts.
I can see us getting a remake of both of them packaged together, done by a different company.
And the unfortunate thing that if you touch those games, you're probably going to get death threats because the people who are fans of those games threatened to blow up Bethesda's offices when 3 was announced.
Because it was so different?
Yeah, because it was so different. No Mutants Allowed was one of the biggest Fallout fan forums, and it's notorious for how toxic they are.
That's I don't know, man. That's par for the course for video game fans, I feel like.
It's notorious.
Niche CRPG fans especially.
So yeah, that's awful. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like I do think Bethesda is feeling some sort of impetus now to do something Fallout. But, games take so long, there's no way they can really put something out kind of soon. I think the next gen quote unquote Fallout 4 update is it.
We could see maybe like a Fallout themed something in Starfield. Like a crossover. Like they're not the same universe, but it's the best you're going to do probably.
But I also find it interesting that Microsoft was asking Bethesda to accelerate their Fallout timelines, which I don't know. Like, I always thought Bethesda had like complete autonomy. Like, maybe it was just like not a command, but a genuine ask, and maybe Bethesda has the power to say no. I don't know how any of that stuff works, but I did find that interesting.
No, I mean those things happen behind closed doors. There's no telling how demanding the ask was, It's
we were on a major tangent, but I feel like this episode is going to be so contentious and controversial within the Fallout fandom because that's just the Fallout fandom. If you praise any Bethesda Fallout game at all,
well, that's the thing.
They might the jump show down your throat. Like New Vegas,
the show was. Is there a contingent of Fallout fans that don't like the show? Because I feel like the show is pretty universally
100%. There are people that are up in arms that they nuked the New California Republic.
Oh, I did see that, actually.
There are fans. There are always going to be Fallout fans that hate anything that comes out of Bethesda.
Spoiler.
Which, we're in the spoiler section, so...
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, we warned about spoilers. We could talk about it.
Well, we didn't, actually, but... Okay, so... I guess if we want to talk about spoilers, as far as I'm concerned, that's a pretty minor spoiler.
That is a super minor spoiler, because I saw that before I even considered watching the show. Trending.
I think, okay, so let's start talking about spoilers. So from this point on, if you haven't seen the show, feel free to skip ahead. There will be a timestamp to when we start talking about games. So skip ahead to that if you haven't watched Fallout. So this is your last chance. So, all right, spoilers. So I want to circle back to the moment the show really clicked for me, and it was a really messed up moment, is when Lucy bit off the ghoul's finger.
I suspected that was going to be it, yeah.
And then the ghoul just casually cut her finger off. And it was so visceral and so scary and so like, ugh.
See, this was very
when that happened, it really kind of grabbed me, and I was just like, okay, yeah, there's something happening here.
This was a mixed moment for me because it was one of the comments that had been made earlier. This was almost like a Chekhov's gun, but like a store clerk had looked at Lucy and said, "Oh, you're privileged. You still have all your fingers, all your toes, whatever." And this is when that stopped being true, and I was like, "Oh, this is a big moment for Lucy's character. Like she is not a vault dweller anymore. She is now someone in the wasteland. Like this was her trial. Like this was her baptism by fire." And then, I don't know if it's the same episode or the next episode, but she gets a finger. She gets it back. And I was like, oh. And that's why I kind of feel like Lucy
gets a necroted finger and sews it onto her stub or something.
Well, yeah, but it's like a doctor robot that does it. Like it's...
Yeah.
Hers feels a lot more sterile than his. He also gets his finger back. He's a ghoul, so whatever. But he just sews his own finger back on. But she, like... And it stays blue the entire rest of the series, but it does feel like, oh, this sucked for her. It was a bad experience, but she is not facing consequences, like, the same way. Like, if it had happened to Maximus, he was not getting that finger back, Other people in the wasteland, bad things happen to them, and there's no recompense for it. Lucy, specifically, as the main character, as the protagonist, the player stand-in,
yeah, I don't know. Like, that's true to an extent, but if we're going full on spoilers here, right, her entire worldview is shattered too. Like, the dad she spent the whole show trying to save turns out to be one of the people who caused the destruction of the world, right? So, like, mentally, I mean, I feel like she's had a lot
Yeah,
of...
she gets put through the ringer. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not that's not a consequence like of a decision she made or anything. She makes decisions with impunity. She doesn't get, she's able to make bold decisions. That feels like a story beat that was going to happen no matter what. That was her destiny, was to get to that place and learn that her dad was, had committed genocide.
I hear you. Yeah. I mean, she did decide to leave the vault, but I guess if she didn't decide to leave the vault, there wouldn't really be
there's
a
no
show.
story. Yeah.
But
yeah,
I think just in general, I find the 3 protagonist system interesting. I think they all have their merits. Obviously, I think the Ghoul / Cooper is the most interesting. But I think the show, in a larger sense, really started clicking for me when our 3 protagonists started like interacting.
Yes, I agree.
When they were alone, it was just sort of disjointed, and it just felt like stuff was happening, and I wasn't really too into it. But when they started converging, I was like, okay, this is interesting now.
But it didn't lose me when they split back up.
Right, yeah. Like, I feel like their characters really solidified when they met up and started developing. And then when they split up, they were interesting still. Yeah. Like, when Maximus was first introduced, I was like falling asleep, man. Like,
yeah, that was very
his
boring.
Brotherhood of Steel and just the Brotherhood of Steel plotline in general, not my cup of tea. Like, it's just not that interesting to me.
Yeah,
but
weird, dumb cult. You know.
But after Maximus and Lucy met up, like, Maximus was interesting because he wasn't part of this dumb cult, like you said.
And their whole, the way that their world views, not necessarily like their values, but the way that they see the world, literally, the way that they conflict was fascinating to me. Like,
yeah, and how they changed.
You would think of Lucy as being the sheltered one. But in a classical American sense, it almost felt like Maximus was more sheltered. Like, he was really uncomfortable around sexuality, and Lucy isn't at all. But, like, Maximus has no problem with violence, and Lucy does.
Right, yeah. It was just a product of the environments they were raised in.
Yeah.
And I guess speaking of those environments, right, we talked about the Brotherhood of Steel, which was whatever. But Vault 33 I thought was fascinating, and I was really excited each time the story jumped back to Vault 33. And
yes.
I don't know. I hope in season 2 we continue that storyline a bit, even though I feel like the main purpose of that story has sort of been served with the reveal that happened there.
There's very little to say about, like, there's nothing left to say about Vault 31, but, like, now that, what was his name? What was the kid's name?
Oh gosh, her brother.
Yeah.
I forget her name. I forget his name, yeah.
Yeah, me too. But anyway, him finding out that the denizens of Vault 31 are pre-war, like they're people that were in cryopods that have set themselves aside to rule over the other 2 vaults. Like, there's no going back to normal for him, and like he knows now that.
And I forget, where did he leave? Was he stuck in there at the end?
Yes, he was trapped in Vault 31.
So he probably has to like freeze himself to survive.
Yeah, that was the ultimatum he was given, was that he could get into his dad's pod.
Which is also interesting. Like, it makes me think of, like, is there going to be another, like, very long time jump at some point?
Maybe, but Lucy might also go home before she, we don't know. We know that Lucy is going to join the Ghoul for the next season.
Right, and they teased New Vegas at the end.
Yes.
Which is interesting. I mean, not really to me, because
I was gonna say, I
haven't played New Vegas, but I think it was very interesting to fans.
I know the name Mr. House, and that people like him or do not like him. I forget. But I know that people have feelings about him.
But yeah, it was kind of obvious to me what the Ghoul's end goal was, but it was really satisfying hearing him say it in the last episode, where he just like points the gun, he's like, "Where's my family?" And now, I guess, he and Lucy finally have some kind of common understanding, because throughout the whole season, they were really, I guess, butting heads, and he really violently treated her, which was kind of almost hard to watch, how, like, horribly he was treating her. Which, again, is in character, right? Like, I like how they didn't pull punches with this character. Like, just because Lucy's the main protagonist, she didn't get really spared from his cruelty. But now they're together and finally have some, I guess, common ground after the events of the season, which I think is going to be a very interesting dynamic in 2, because I think he's going to soften up a little bit and she's going to I guess, keep getting harder and harder as her innocence keeps getting lost.
I did find it strange that he invited her to go. That felt out of character, but it is, like you said, he's softening a little bit.
He's changing, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he can respect the fact that, like, she now, her father is now her enemy too. So they have a common enemy now.
Right.
And he can understand, like, because he went through the same thing. Like, the person he loved most, he found out was a monster, essentially. And that's what Lucy went through too. So he has that sort of empathy for her now. And they have that common ground, which I think is an interesting character kind of connection.
So would you say that the scene with the finger getting bit off, do you think that's your favorite scene in the show?
Favorite scene of the show? That's hard.
I've got mine. And it's,
I don't know, like, right off the bat, that jumps out at me. I think I'd have to think about it, though.
My favorite...
I think there were a lot of good scenes, yeah.
My favorite scene in the show has gotta be when the ghoul goes... It's like a homestead out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh,
and a father and a son walk in.
That was
and
brutal.
The ghoul is sitting there eating, and they think that he's eating their daughter. But he's not. She's still alive. And she gets sent outside, and he's just there for information. But it finds out that this guy's two sons are both working with Moldaver. Or how's it pronounced? Moldaver?
I think that was right.
Okay, Moldaver. And he has the whole, I could leave here now, but I need to know that your boy's not going to come after me. And he ends up having to kill the kid. The kid, he's like a teen. He might even be 18, but
that was a great scene.
Yeah. Having to, quote unquote. He does. He kills the kid.
He does.
Yeah.
But it also is interesting where I think the ghoul, Cooper, he's a fascinating character because it's been 200 plus years, right? Like, he's been alive this whole time. And even though he's cruel and violent now, I do think he has some kind of moral code still, even in that cruel state. Because he tried to give that kid an out. He was just like, I'll leave, but you better not come after me. And then the kid grabbed a gun.
Yeah.
And also, like, you see him around, like, dogs and stuff, like, specifically the dog in the wasteland. He's very affectionate to the dog, calling back to...
He killed the dog first.
Wait, what?
The dog, like, bites him and he stabs it and throws it aside.
That was... Oh, did the dog... Was that a different dog? I don't know.
No, that was the dog, and then I don't think it was dead, but he had stabbed it, and he fixes the dog up because he's going to use it to track the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but his affection to... he was affectionate to the dog. Like, he was, like...
Yeah,
and that was calling back to his earlier dog, right? Like, that trait of his love for dogs never died after, like, hundreds of years or whatever.
Yeah.
But... No, just a really interesting character. And like we said, magnificently brought to life by Walton Goggins.
Can I say the guy who plays the scientist, the head? I don't know that guy's name.
He was like he was in Lost, right?
He was in Lost. I have loved him in every show he's ever been in, but he's always like not in it very much. Like he's always like almost cameo level. Like he's just not in the show for very long. And I was like excited because it seemed like he was going to be a major player in this. And then he kills himself in episode 2. Yeah.
And like the head became the kind of like MacGuffin everyone was worried about the whole season. And it was like really funny / gross seeing how the head became like more decrepit over the course of the season. Like by the end, it was like really decomposed.
I'd actually heard people talk a lot about the gore in this show. Like it was like...
It's pretty violent, dude.
It's violent, but I wouldn't call it gory. Those aren't the same. Like I was expecting to see people's like entrails spilling out and stuff. And that...
I mean, there was that scene where Maximus was in the, like the power armor or whatever.
And he steps,
Well, not just steps. There was a scene where he crushed the dude's head, and that was really gruesome. Like, you saw the brain bits and skull bits just sort of fall everywhere.
This was like on par or a little bit less than The Boys, I would say. I
agree with that. I mean, The Boys is pretty violent.
But the way people were talking about it, I was expecting it to be way worse. Way worse.
Yeah. I mean, it's still pretty violent. Like, this is
I'm not going to watch this with a kid, but like...
Right, yeah.
I saw people saying like, oh, they weren't going to show it to their parents, and I was like, I don't know, my dad can watch, like, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get it. Like, my parents would not be able to watch something this violent.
Yeah,
but, you know,
my mom wouldn't like
everyone's
it for
different.
sure, but I think my dad would enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I said, after episode 4, around that time, I really grew fond of the show, and I willingly watched, I guess, five episodes last night.
Yeah,
and I was eager for more. I'm like excited for season 2. Yeah, I just hope like we got a lot of our mysteries answered in season 1, and a lot of those mysteries were very compelling to me. I know you said they weren't too compelling to you because like you already knew a lot of stuff, but to me they were pretty compelling. I just hope they can come up with equally compelling mysteries for season 2.
Yeah, I don't know, because we know, I mean, the biggest mystery is like why'd the bombs drop, and we more or less know that now.
Well, also, yeah, we know that, but when her dad was leaving in the suit, like at the very end, it seems like he was going back to a city, like a completely intact futuristic city. So is there like a safe haven where people from Vault Tech are living or something? Like I didn't really understand that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember seeing an intact futuristic city. I remember seeing, well, I thought it was ruins of a city.
Okay, so maybe I just like didn't see it right, but like it seemed like he was going back to a base of sorts where I was just like, okay, do like Vault Tech people exclusively live here or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there probably are, we're probably going to see other vaults next season, which
I mean, yeah, gosh, how many are there? There's a lot, right? Over 100?
Isn't there over 200, I think? I don't remember. This is
a Mike question, if Mike's still here.
For what?
How many vaults are there?
A lot. I don't think they ever gave a number.
But it's in the hundreds, right?
Easily. I think there's... I don't know how many. There's over 100, though.
Okay.
But
so yeah, we'll
I mean,
see some
plenty
more.
of potential for really interesting storytelling. Like, I would not be upset at all if there was also a story thread for Vault 32 next season as well, because like the denizens of 33 got divided up between 33 and 32.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was gonna say I don't care to ever see anything about like the previous denizens of Vault 32, but
no, yeah. I don't care about that. But
no, we've seen
again,
enough,
that was a very compelling mystery, right? Like when they first went in there and everyone was dead and they found out they weren't killed by the Raiders. They've been dead for years. I thought that was really, it was compelling stuff to watch.
And I want to point out, they did eventually spoon feed it to you, but they did it in the way that I really like, where like they showed you all the evidence to let you figure out what happened first. And then they told you what happened. And also like Fallout is known for its environmental storytelling, and that shows in this show really well. Like,
oh yeah,
like Lucy walks in very early in the show. She walks in and she sees a family with a little vial that Vault Tech makes, and it was a suicide serum that they had fed to, like the adults had eaten it, but they'd fed it to their baby as well, and that felt like right out of the games to me. I've played very little of the games, but I've watched Tyler play some Fallout 4, and like that felt like extremely authentic. And they didn't, like, Lucy never says like, oh, this family must have killed themselves or something. Like, she's just like shocked by it, but you the viewer get to infer what happened there.
Right. So, no, like the storytelling in the show was very well done.
There's,
not heavy-handed.
I think, canonically 118 vaults, maybe more. It's whatever the writers decide, honestly. I can't find a solid number.
That's plenty of potential for Vault storylines.
Yeah, they've not written themselves
What
into
I
a
will
corner
say,
with,
though, like, I was talking about how the story wasn't heavy-handed, and I do believe that, but there is one thing I kind of didn't like, and I thought it was a bit too cartoonishly evil for Vault Tech to have dropped the bombs. Like, especially in that boardroom when they were talking, it was almost to the point of being, like, unbelievable. Because,
yeah, but that was the point, I think. Like,
yeah, and plus, again, that absurdism is part of Fallout, so I guess it fits. But it was almost like, come on, like, I don't know. I felt like they could have cooked it a little bit better. But, like, this company's sitting there talking about, this company, the greediest company in the world, the richest company in the world, is basically talking about how they want to, I guess, nuke the world, thereby nuking their profits just so they can get control over like a small section of people in their vault. It just didn't really
Yeah, from a
It was kinda
capitalist
weird.
sense, it doesn't make any sense at all. But like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And maybe there's more to the story. Like maybe there's like more to be revealed in season 2. But just based off the information we know right now, like I get it, they're cartoonishly evil, but like I kind of like wish it was presented in a less.
I mean, I think it's
cartoonish
simultaneously cartoonishly stupid, but I also saw it as an allegory for the real life companies that are destroying the planet in the name of profit.
It
right
absolutely
now.
was, an allegory for that. But I just thought like it was done in such an over the top way that it was a little like it took me out of the moment a little bit.
Yeah.
And
the fact that not a single person on the board was like,
was just like,
I live in the world. I don't want it to like
exactly. It was just a little bit. It was a little hard to believe.
I don't want to live in a vault. Like
exactly right. Like you're right now. You're one of the richest people on the planet. You're gonna spend the rest of your life underground in a vault, and you'll get to manage like 50 people, I guess. But is that really what you want? I don't know. So it's a bit confusing.
They already had it pretty good, but it's silly, but
that's why I think like because I do think the writing of the show is very tight to where like I almost believe that there's probably more to the story because that was the one thing like the big reveal.
I mean that's canon from the games. I'm pretty sure
it was shocking, but it just didn't add up too much. Well, Vault-Tec dropping the bombs is I actually looked this up. This was never really confirmed in the game.
Yeah,
right?
it was
not confirmed.
The game's intentionally vague because it's more interesting when you don't know what caused the apocalypse.
Right.
Because it's not essential. You don't need to know who dropped the bombs. You just need to know the bombs.
Right. The point
are
is
there.
what happens after.
I would argue it's not confirmed in the show. It's confirmed that Vault-Tec would have done it. It's not confirmed that they did.
Yes.
It's implied. So
it's very heavily implied, but again, we don't know if that is exactly what happened. So there is some wiggle room
I would
there
actually
for future
argue
seasons.
that they likely didn't because Cooper's wife would have, like, why was he at a party with his daughter?
They had divorced.
Okay, but, like, she's gonna, like, she's not gonna show up and
just
tell
off
them to
his daughter,
like, she's just gonna kill her daughter?
Her daughter?
Like, what do we do?
I don't know. Like, so something about that still doesn't really add up to me.
Yeah, it doesn't pass the sniff test.
Plus, like, he's looking for his family. So he was with his daughter when the bomb went off, but he's still, I guess, under
they were
the
separated at some point. Yeah,
that she's alive, frozen somewhere. It's interesting. So clearly, there's more story left to be told, and I hope we get more stuff fleshed out in the past as well, because I did find that a little undercooked and very interesting at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more problems with that than And this is something that's always bothered me about the Fallout universe is that nuclear bombs don't do that. They don't leave like hundreds of years of radiation. They the bombs in the Fallout universe were specifically made to make the world and
they're not like the nukes in our world.
Yeah, it's
because
like
I mean, like Hiroshima is like totally fine right now, and that wasn't hundreds of years ago.
No, it's actually very like within days of the bomb going off, like. You can like walk around there. I'm pretty sure. Like I looked into it at one point because I didn't believe somebody who was telling me that. What?
It depends on the strength of the bomb. If the bomb's weak, it'll irradiate longer. But if it's a very powerful bomb, it will shoot most of its radiation into the stratosphere. But for weaker bomb loads, so like a smaller bomb, it will render it uninhabitable for quite a while, and it'll still leave isolated pockets.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, but like, I don't know, that's a contrivance I'm fine with. They had special nukes to create the world of Fallout, whatever.
Yeah.
But
small yield, probably.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited for season 2. I don't know is there any other specific scenes or character moments you guys want to talk about before we move on?
I really liked how ambiguous it was until the very end of the show. And I almost feel weird that they let us know eventually, but I liked that we didn't know for sure if Maximus had hurt his friend. The Maximus's friend is chosen to be a squire, and they go to put their boot on, and there are razor blades in it. They hurt their foot, and like Maximus gets accused of doing it. And we're
I never thought Maximus did it. It just didn't fit with his character.
I thought he might have for a minute. Like there were moments where I wondered, especially like when he did more violent, like. When he was willing to really hurt his squire.
Yeah, but his squire was like really cruel to him. at the same
No,
time.
his knight was really cruel.
Oh,
to
right.
him. Thaddeus,
Yeah, right.
the squire,
You're
was
right.
genuinely like a pretty decent. I mean, he was cruel to him in the past, I guess, but like Thaddeus was a very relatable character. I would argue. He got a lot of.
And Thaddeus, oh no,
lot of bad
he died,
stuff
right?
happened
He
to him.
died. He turned into a ghoul,
No.
then died, right?
No, he just turned into a ghoul. I'm pretty sure he ran off into the woods.
Oh,
yeah,
I thought-
Maximus stalled for him so that he could escape.
Okay,
because
yeah.
the Brotherhood would have killed him for being a ghoul.
Right. Oh, so he's still around, yeah.
Yeah, he gets shot in the throat. That's when he finds out he's a ghoul.
I mean, I feel like any ghoul other than Cooper has a pretty grim fate, so he might not be
Yes, like
around for long.
Thaddeus will be back in season 2. I cannot imagine he won't be, but
And I guess Cooper found like all of those inhalers or whatever serums
yeah, he's probably
So
cooked.
he's
He's
set.
probably good for a while.
set
Yeah.
for like a year or something. I don't know. But
Well, he was asking for 6 months, and they were going to give him that like it was no big deal. So I suspect he's got a lot more than that.
Right.
I don't think that's going to be much of an issue for him in the next season.
right, it
I
won't
think
be
that
like a
was,
plot point anymore.
Yeah, like they might take his supply at some point, and he has to like go get it back. But
Yeah, like where the characters ended up, I really like where Lucy and Cooper ended up. I like that they're together for the next part. I don't like that Maximus is back with the Brotherhood because I thought the Brotherhood was probably the weakest part of the story. But
you can't have Fallout without the Brotherhood of Steel.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah.
unfortunately. But at the same time, like, boy, do I hate every time they bring up the Brotherhood of Steel.
I thought that the climactic fight was a little disappointing. That was the first time it kind of felt like I could see the show's budget. The number, and maybe,
I agree.
Maybe
like
that's
the scale of the fight was disappointing. I thought the scene of the ghouls showing up in the dark and just taking out everyone was excellent.
insanely good.
Yeah.
But there just weren't very many people there. Like,
Right.
which I
And
guess is like maybe
it's also
a Fallout
believable,
thing.
right? Because like
Yeah.
I don't know, there aren't armies of tens of thousands of people in this wasteland, but
But on the other hand, the Brotherhood, we saw a camp that had a lot of people in it. Like we saw a large number of people in the Brotherhood a few times.
right. I guess they didn't
and
send everyone, which I guess makes sense. But
They didn't have to. There wasn't that many people. Like they kind of curb stomped the NCR there at the end.
right, they had like those aerial vehicles and those power suits, so they didn't really stand a chance.
Also, I got a problem with the whole cold fusion thing, and how that was like that was Moldaver like saving the world or whatever, was getting cold fusion to work or whatever. I was like, I don't know. Actually, I don't think people in the wasteland, electricity is not what they needed right now. Like there were many
I think
things.
the idea was that it was a limitless power supply, so conceivably you could do something with it that could save humanity. But
they could do a lot, yeah, I'm sure, but
yeah, just turning on the lights isn't it?
it's not the victory that they acted like it was. Like,
I
okay,
think
AC would make it a lot nicer.
I think
You're
all
right,
the lights
but-
turning on was just to demonstrate that this is the scale of what's sort of possible now with this power supply in the right hands or something.
right?
'Cause
And
I do
the
think, like-
Brotherhood of Steel has it now, right?
My read on it, well, yes, right, because the brother of the, because she quote unquote died at the end, which I don't think is. I feel like she's probably going to come back in season 2. I don't think she's dead. I
I
just
don't
think there's
know.
too much to her character. But yeah, the Brotherhood of Steel have it, which they probably don't have too many altruistic intentions for that thing. But I do think, presumably, like the idea is in the future, if someone scientifically minded got their hands on that, they could invent something that could save the world.
I do really love. There's a line when they're discussing what happened to Shady Sands. Maximus, who like has every reason in the world to be very bitter about what happened there, but kind of doesn't seem like he is. He says everybody wants to save the world, they just can't agree about how. And I think that was really
That was a good line.
That was a really good like thesis statement for the show, I think.
Well, it's a good thesis statement, but not necessarily true to everyone, because Vault-Tec certainly didn't want to save the world.
I would argue Vault-Tec thinks they're saving the world. They think that the
by
world
killing
is a better
billions.
place. Yeah, they think the world's a better place in their control.
Yeah. Well, I
they
suppose
think- they think-
every villain thinks they're doing the right thing, right? So-
Yeah. So, and they, he thought he was saving the world by nuking Shady Sands. He did not, because he was Vault-Tec, he was doing the same thing. He was like, no, it was
Yeah.
our job to rebuild society. This wasn't supposed to happen, so he destroyed it.
Right. The stuff with the Vault-Tec survivors and their plans for their future, that was what reminded me of Horizon Zero Dawn, because there's a very similar kind of plot line in Horizon.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, I love that kind of stuff, where people have this vision for the future, like people from the past existing hundreds of years in the future. It's cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like the, I don't know if it was ever in the games, like a ghoul that had been alive since before the bombs dropped, but having...
That perspective is so unique.
Having that perspective, but also the person who's been there the whole time versus the people that were frozen is like a fascinating perspective, because they didn't see what happened, you know?
Right.
And even like Lucy kind of had that perspective because she knew history before, like she knew everything that happened before the bombs dropped and nothing after.
But yeah, imagine like the perspective, because people in Vault 31, they're still cryo-frozen, and I imagine they just get woken up in like certain increments, like every decade or so. Like their perspective is just like, okay, we went into the vault, now we've woken up, and now we're just gonna keep going. Like that's just insane to be missing all that context. Which also like raises the question of like, how are these people able to integrate so well into the vaults? Like, because you know,
they were trained.
Like
before.
Lucy's blonde friend, she was a Vault 31 dweller, which I guess means she was also frozen and woken up.
They explained that they were all Bud's manager group in one of the flashbacks. So they were trained for this. They were trained to lead the vaults.
Right. It's just it's crazy. It's just such a large gap of time that anything could have really happened. But
nothing did.
But nothing did. Yeah, it's such a controlled environment that nothing did happen. But now things are starting to happen, so.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a good show, man. I'm impressed. I think this bodes really well for future adaptations too, because the bar I think was set with The Last of Us, and now it has been reached again with this show. So
yeah, I think this is the second best. Like the Last of Us being the best video game adaptation, this is the second best, I think.
I think I agree with that, but I do think this show is more rewatchable than The Last of Us, because The Last of Us is on the same kind of scale as something like, I don't know, like Breaking Bad or
I wouldn't have watched The
whatever.
Last of Us if I was sick. This was something I could watch while I was like, I had a head cold.
Yeah, that lighthearted flavor thrown in with all the dark content really kind of makes the show shine. Yeah. So just like the Fallout games.
Yeah.
All right. Last chance to speak your mind on Fallout. Mike, are you going to watch it, the rest of it?
Probably at some point. I'm super busy recently, again, because I went on a camping trip last weekend.
Yeah, it's one of those things I would have a hard... If I was busy, I would be putting it off. It wasn't like a must-see, in my opinion, the way that The Last of Us was. But it is absolutely worth your time. Like,
it's very, very good. And if you are a fan of the Fallout games in any capacity, I think this is a must-watch. All right, so what are you all playing?
I played a little bit of Sea of Thieves last night. I actually got to play with a galleon, but nothing worth talking about. I have been playing more Monster Hunter World. I dipped a toe into Iceborne, finally, and it is...
So how's that?
It's really, really good. It's largely what I've been fighting so far. I've been to the new area that it adds, the icy area. I like it about as much as I expected, maybe a little more. I'm not a big ice level guy, but at least Monster Hunter doesn't make stuff slippery. But I hit another wall. I needed to upgrade my gear and everything. And I decided I was kind of tired of using the hammer. The hammer is what I've been using, which is a pretty unga-bunga, smooth brain kind of weapon. Like, you just got to hit really hard and you hit them in the head a bunch of times. It has like 1 or 2 combos worth using at all. But it's still fun. Like, I'm not dunking on the hammer. My time with the hammer was very fun. It's just a pretty simple weapon. I switched to the hunting horn, which is not a simple weapon.
Hunting horn.
The hunting horn is like a giant horn bagpipe kind of thing. It's an instrument, but it's also a giant club. So you have 3 attacks with your hunting horn, and you can do a couple of combos with your 3 attacks. But you have 3 notes essentially corresponding to your 3 attacks. And so you each hunting horn has different songs you can play. And you choose what song to play by doing that combo, and it queues up that song. And you can queue up 3 songs, and then you pull the right trigger, and you, like, swing the horn around, which is, like, a huge, like, stunning attack. And that's not guaranteed to stun, but it can stun the monster. And then you play the song, which also does another burst of damage. And you can play all 3 songs in sequence, or you can play just one of the songs that you have queued up, and those songs give you buffs. And then you can hit right trigger again, either after the first song or after however many songs, and you encore, which makes you swing it around again, doing even more damage this time, and you play those songs. And when you play them a second time, it either extends the benefits or sometimes even amplifies them. So the horn I'm using right now has a large attack up song that I can play, and it's pretty much my go-to combo right now. But I can play that, and if I encore it, I get an attack up XL instead of an attack up L. And, like, that's just a song I keep playing, and and if I'm playing multiplayer, all of my friends are doing significantly increased damage now. But then also, like, it's just a weapon that you can swing around like a hammer. It just has this, like, entire second side that you have to balance. But also, like, you're not totally stationary, but you're moving very slowly while you're playing that song. And so you kind of have to, like, really carefully, like, I've seen people describe it as almost dancing around the monster, because you have to be very close because you want to be hitting them with these attacks. It's not something you want to be standing on the sidelines swinging around to queue up your song. You want to be there doing damage. But that means, and also, like, your song does damage, so you want to be on top of the monster the whole time. You're doing this little dance with it. And I'm really enjoying it so far.
That sounds like an incredibly unique weapon. And I'm sure Monster Hunter's, like, full of weapons like that.
There's, like, 12 or 14 weapons. And, like, there's some simple stuff like sword and shield and bow. But then there's, like, medium bow gun, heavy bow gun, insect glaive, hunting horn, charge blade, switch axe. Like, there are a lot of... You get to choose how complicated of an experience you want in Monster Hunter. You know, you like going from the hammer to the hunting horn is me saying I was ready for a little bit more engagement in my fights. And you get rewarded. Like, I definitely feel like I'm stronger with the hunting horn. Granted, the hunting horn is made of better materials than my hammer was, but I feel significantly stronger. I feel like I have more options in a fight right now. And it's really neat.
That's awesome.
A lot of the monsters I've been fighting are, like, recolors that have, like, a different element so far. I'm still very early in the DLC because I wanted to, like, get the materials for these weapons.
Right. I'm sure there's like actual unique, like, lots of unique creatures too.
Well, even just being these recolors, they have new moves and, like, are actually, like, really engaging to fight. That's not a complaint at all. Like, they're getting their mileage out of the monster designs that they had, but these are vastly different fights. Like, some of the very easy monsters I'd fought in the beginning, they were like, all right, it's very similar, but now it does poison damage, and that's a huge problem because it attacks very quickly. Like, I burnt through all of my antidotes because I couldn't figure out how to dodge these attacks, and I just kept getting poisoned. Very fun game.
All right, well, I'm sure you'll keep us updated on your Monster Hunter journey through Iceborne.
Yeah.
Mike?
I'm just going to talk about RimWorld again because it got cut out of last episode.
It did.
It
did.
So I had been playing the Anomaly expansion for RimWorld, which added Lovecraftian horror and everything. Very fun. Did not expect.
What kind of game is RimWorld again?
It's a colony simulator. It's like Dwarf Fortress, but it's more focused on stories rather than simulating an entire world.
This is like a top-down, like, town simulator, colony builder kind of thing.
That's one of the two titans of the genre right now. I think it and Dwarf Fortress are kind of huge right now. Yeah, RimWorld's a game I've been playing since before it was even on Steam, actually. I remember having to go to his website and buy a key. I don't even know how long ago. It was like 2016. I was still in college. But it has changed a lot since those early days because they didn't have a world map. They didn't have any expansions. It was nothing.
Can you, like, send out a raiding party, like, into the world map? I know that's something they put in Dwarf Fortress that I've literally never engaged with it in any way.
Yeah, they have this, and they have quests that you can go on to get yourself off-world, because that's your end goal, is to get off the planet.
Interesting.
Other expansions, you have other end goals, like the anomaly one's finishing up the monolith.
It also always seemed like a game to me that you could choose an end goal to kind of work towards.
Yeah. Like the game itself is fairly simple. It's all built around failure. Most colony simulators don't really end with the end goal. They end when your colony explodes, often in
it's more interesting
spectacular fashion. Like, the last time I played RimWorld was on stream a while ago, and I had a colonist have a mental breakdown over the fact they stubbed their toe. And they proceeded to eat all my food and cause a starvation crisis.
That's very Dwarf
Fortress. They were in a little pain, and they, instead of just dealing with it, they decided, it's the end of the world, I'm going to eat all the food, and I'm going to lock myself in the freezer. Great game. It's those stories that come out of it that are really interesting, and all the DLC are built around those stories.
Did the DLC like play nicely with each other?
Yeah.
Like if I have Anomaly and one of the others, they like will those systems interact with each other?
Same with Biotech and Anomaly. They all integrate. They're all designed to integrate with each other. Like, you don't have to have them. Ideology kind of interacts with everything because it allows you to create like almost like a religion or a belief. For example, the transhumanist belief, or meme as they call it encourages you to change your body or get rid of the human parts and replace them with machine parts or whatever. That also applies to the flesh tentacles and bizarre flesh mutations you can get from Anomaly. Those are benefited by body modder and transhumanist. And it will negate any negative moods you get for replacing your colonist's arms with flesh tentacles. So it is very nifty how those two interact.
Yeah.
And biotech interacts weirdly as well. I think there's like genes that you can get, and xenohumans exist.
Yeah, I love those systemic games like that.
Everything kind of integrates.
Games like this and Dwarf Fortress have always interested me, and I think if I actually took the plunge and played them, I'd enjoy them quite a bit. I just haven't done it yet.
They're fascinating games because, at least Dwarf Fortress for me, I like playing it, but I like reading about it almost as much as I like playing about it. Like it's a story generator.
That's the magic of these games. Is some of the best time I've had with Dwarf Fortress isn't playing the game. Like, I've had plenty of fun times playing the game and creating these bizarre monstrosity contraptions. But reading a story like Boat Murdered or Battle Failed is always like, it elevates it.
It can take a very high level of skill to get to those sorts of situations sometimes. And I never had it with Dwarf Fortress. I never, like, my disasters were funny and enjoyable to me, but they weren't these epic tales that I saw other people having because I just could not get, I couldn't get the industry together. Like the mountain, whatever. My fortress was never going to become the mountain home. And like all the stuff that comes with that, I never got that far.
But I love how there's that potential in each session of Dwarf Fortress or RimWorld for something,
and it like
spectacular
rewards
and epic
that
to
skill.
happen.
Yeah, in such a huge way.
Yeah. When I played Dwarf Fortress, I actually did do a secession game. I'm trying to find the name of it because I can't remember. But I remember us having a very long discussion. Because it was slightly modded. There was this gas that would occasionally come through and mutate everything it touched into like these day-long super soldiers or whatever.
How is the modding
of RimWorld?
RimWorld.
I think it's all Lua.
RimWorld. It's all Lua?
I think they have like a script language for it.
And there's a lot of mods for it.
There's tons. There's mods for everything. There's even vehicle mods, which it doesn't have a base thing. But yeah, this Dwarf Fortress, it was Clobber Mountains. That was the name of the secession fortress. We had like a day or 3 long discussion about weaponizing the gas by putting dogs in a chamber and exposing them to it so that we could release them on goblin hordes as these beefed up, hulked up super soldiers.
That's good. That's the most Dwarf Fortress thing I've ever heard, though. The problem would solve itself
in a year once they died of organ failure, because that's what the gas was programmed to do. But we did legitimately have a day or 2 long discussion about gassing puppies. And that is the most Dwarf Fortress or RimWorld story, because it makes you think these just nuts. Like, you just think of these wild things to be.
It's kind of a Fallout-y story
like,
too.
You never think of these things like it's vile, but the game doesn't tell you no, and at no point does the game hold your hand and tell you need to stop.
No, it'll just let you.
A game like Dwarf Fortress has had tales that are so bad that the developer nerfed the price of mermaid bones because the players had created elaborate drowning chambers for mermaid children to harvest their bones and sell them for massive amounts of money.
That's
like, it's
funny.
So, and you'd never think of these. These are normal people, but in Dwarf Fortress, the game doesn't tell you no, not to do that. In fact, it rewards you for finding ingenious solutions to problems.
Yeah.
I love games like this where, especially RimWorld. RimWorld doesn't tell you no. RimWorld says, yeah, sure, you can keep them as slaves. Just make sure they're not going to rebel. They might kill you. Or you can recruit them. It gives you an option. And I don't think I've toyed with slaves in RimWorld yet. I need to. I haven't. I'm too good. I'm too good souled to like willingly.
Too good for slavery.
Too good for slavery. Yep. I can't do it. But I need to toy with the system because I know it works. I know it's there. And like the organ farms are profitable.
Yeah. Eventually I'll bite the bullet and play one of these games. They definitely seem up my alley.
RimWorld's probably more accessible than Dwarf Fortress, if I had to guess. Dwarf Fortress is not.
Notoriously not, right? Yeah.
It's better than it's ever been since they did the Steam release, but it's still tricky.
All right. You got anything else, Mike?
No, nothing else.
So I've been playing Dave the Diver. There's one other game I was playing, but I want to wait till next week so I can.
Have you played Dave the Diver before?
No, this is my first time. So, yeah, it was free on PlayStation Plus Extra, so I grabbed it, and it's like the perfect Portal game. I'm playing it, not on my TV. But
yeah, no, it was a Steam Deck game for me for sure.
It's an interesting game, though. I had no idea what I was getting into when I first got it. I just heard that like a lot of people liked it. I knew there was like some controversy around it, but I decided to give it a go. So this game is about Dave, who is a diver. He's approached by his friend Cobra to start a sushi restaurant with the expert chef Bancho. That is the premise of the game. So the sushi restaurant gets set up at Blue Hole, which is this location which is said to have fish from all over the world, like the All Blue, I guess.
The All Blue.
Actually, the All Blue. But that's the premise of the game. It's very lighthearted. It's very fun. And the core, I guess, loop is that during the day, you're Dave, you go dive into the ocean, you catch fish. And by the way, there's lots of different species of fish, like hundreds probably, and it has like a kind of Pokemon-esque element of catching these fish, at least to me. Like, I enjoy finding and catching new fish. But you catch these new fish so that in the evening, you can help manage the sushi restaurant. So, Bancho is the chef, but what you do is you manage the restaurant, right? So you set the menu, you serve drinks, you do all this kind of stuff, right? So that's the sort of core loop. You fish during the day, you serve the fish at night, and you set the menu and you do all this stuff for the sushi restaurant at night. So kind of a simple premise, but this game sort of explodes in just the sheer amount of stuff. And what I mean by that is that it just seemingly keeps adding more mechanics, like more and more and more and more and more and more. Like, I'm over 10 hours in and I'm still getting new mechanics added. And they're not just like one-off mechanics too. Like, some of them are one-off mechanics, but a lot of the time they're just like, okay, here's this just brand new thing that you're gonna do like all the time now, which is kind of unique for a game to do, right? Like, because like in this game, there's like it's just like a smorgasbord of stuff. Like, one of the last things I did, like, my weapons creator is like this weird otaku anime fan guy who has like anime body pillows, right? Like,
yeah,
all the people in this game are characters. Like, the characters are truly characters. So this guy, he fell asleep and he had a dream he was at some kind of like K-pop or J-pop rave concert thing. So there was like this rhythm minigame where you were raving in rhythm to this music from this guy's dream, from this like Japanese concert he was at. It was so strange. And it was just like a one-off thing where it's just like, okay, now you can play this like rhythm minigame through your phone if you want. And I was just like, what? Like, what is the point of this? Well, I know what the point of it is, right? Like, the point of it is that to just flesh out the characters in this world, because the characters are quite charming. Like Bancho the sushi chef, there was a section where I played where you got to learn more about his past. And then the game shifted to like a weird first-person perspective where you actually could pick dialogue options, and that had never happened before. So this game is constantly like shifting and evolving, trying new, I guess, gameplay elements out. So it never really feels stale. And the core loop of fishing and serving the fish at night is really fun, because there's lots of stuff to upgrade as well, right? So like you can upgrade your oxygen tank so you can stay underwater longer. You can upgrade your diving suit so you can dive deeper and explore new areas and catch new fish. You can get new weapons to catch fish in like non-lethal ways, which preserves their quality. And then like on the other side at the sushi restaurant, you can level up certain dishes so they generate you more money and are tastier to the customers, and like you can eventually hire people to help you work in the sushi restaurant. And then there's this sort of like management aspect, and you can like level up the people's like skills in the kitchen. It's like this whole thing, right? Like, and even as you hear me talk, you're probably just like, this is just like it's an overwhelming amount of mechanics, and it is. But I think that's kind of the point, right?
That's part of the reason I dropped it. Was it just like it just kept getting
keeps adding stuff, right? Like So like yesterday when I was planning it, they were like, okay, here's this farm, and now you can farm rice, and now there's a farming element to the game. And I was just like, geez, right? And this is like after they introduced a fish farm, where we're like, okay, some of the fish you catch in non-lethal ways will drop eggs. The eggs can be placed here, they will hatch, and this will be a fish breeding ground. And if the breeding grounds become too overpopulated, you could sell some or send some to the kitchen, and you have to manage this as well now. So it's just like, it continually keeps adding more mechanics. But I kind of like that, right? Like, it keeps things fresh, and the story is very lighthearted and fun, and the characters are a lot of fun too. Like, Dave is just really funny to me, because he's just like some really normal, like, really overweight dude that keeps getting thrust into these increasingly, like, ludicrous situations. Like, I don't know. This is kind of a spoiler, I guess, but this is not really a game where spoilers apply, right? Like, the plot is really inconsequential. But eventually you find out there's, like, this underwater merpeople kingdom, and you go there as Dave, just like a regular guy, and you start talking to the people there, and eventually they all love you because you do, like, quests for them and stuff. But, like, that introduces a whole new element to the game, too, where there's, like, this underwater city where there's, like, mer people you do quests for, and there's all sorts of like new mechanics there, like seahorse racing and stuff. So it's just a really unique kind of game where it's just it's very tongue-in-cheek, but also just like very additive. It keeps building on itself and keeps introducing more things for you to track and do, and it's a lot of fun. It was made by Nexon, which
published by Nexon.
Right, published by Nexon, which I do want to say, like, one of the underwater tracks reminds me so much of, like, Aqua Road from MapleStory. Probably completely unrelated, but it did, like, link in my mind that way. But it's a fun game. It's a long game, too. Like, I've played this game for, like, over a dozen hours now, and I don't even think I'm close to seeing the end.
I played it for a pretty long time, too, and it keeps going.
Yeah, so famously not an indie game, so don't get it twisted, but it does have like a very indie popular aesthetic in that it is like a 2D pixelated game. But yeah, the characters all like, there's dialogue, but it's not voiced, right? They have like little chirps and like mumbles when they talk, so it's very charming. It's very endearing that way. So I'm enjoying my time with it, and I hope to see it through to its end, but it's just a very long game, and I like wonder how many more mechanics it can add, and I suspect it's a lot, because the mechanics haven't slowed down, and I'm like a dozen hours in the game, so And you mentioned you played it, right, Connor?
Yeah, I played it back. I talked about it on the show, I think. I played it back in either September or October of last year. I had just moved to Pittsburgh, and I didn't have my full PC set up. So I was like a Steam Deck only gamer, and Dave the Diver was like doing it for me.
It's a great mobile game.
Yeah.
Portable game, I should say.
Yeah.
I've also been playing Stellar Blade, but I'll talk about that next week when I'm further into it.
Disappointed about the censorship, are we?
Oh no.
The censorship. Yeah. Well, that's all. We can talk about that later. But that's
we'll talk.
I mean,
about
I'm not
it.
playing that
That's fun.
game for fan service reasons.
No, it's funnier than it is anything else to me. Yeah.
Right. It's funny that there are people mad about that.
Yeah.
But anyways, all right. So I think that'll do it for us this week. Thank you all for listening. You can follow us at Podcast Game Talk on Twitter and Instagram, where over 300 of you do now. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Click the link in the description to join our Discord and talk to us there. Please like, rate, and review us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast services you use. Thank you, Connor and Mike.
Yeah. See you guys next week.
See you next week. Bye.